Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, and welcome back. Today's DAF is Bava Metzia Kuf Daled. We are holding at the Mishnah Kuf Gimel Amud Beis, 5 lines off the bottom of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Makabel Sada Mechaveru. So a fellow committed to develop his friend's field. Basically, he's a sharecropper. Okay. Now, this field doesn't really suffice by way of rainwater. It needs to be manually, needs to have its own source of water. So it actually had a well on board, okay, in-house water source. Or, this is another case, totally different case, the field which he undertook to develop has a tree or some trees on that field, in which case he'll get a portion of the fruit coming from those trees. Okay, so what happens if there's some sort of change in terms of these featured items? Yava Shamayon V'Niksa Sa'ilan. Suddenly the well dries up and he now has to go find another source of water for that field. V'Niksa Sa'ilan, or the tree that was on the field, suddenly disappeared, it got chopped down. And he can claim, look, the reason why I undertook to look after this field was precisely because it had the in-house water source, or because it had that tree which I had my eyes on. I was looking for the fruit of that tree, which Rashi says comes to him rather easily, as we learned yesterday. It doesn't require much effort on the part of the oris, on the part of the contractor here, and he's going to share the fruit of that tree, right, with little investment. So that's why he committed to the job, and suddenly the thing is gone. The halacha is he cannot deduct off the percentage, or whatever amount he committed to give to the owner. Because although he's disappointed about missing out on this opportunity, but the fact is they did not condition the deal upon this phenomenon. However, if initially he says, look, I want you to look after this beis hashalachan, so he called it by name, right? Which indicates that it has its own water source. Or alternatively, in the case of the tree, he says, I want you to look after this sadeh with the tree. He made clear reference to these features. So in this case, if the item is gone, then he deserves some sort of discount. He can deduct from the amount that he has to pay him. Now, when we say the water dried up, what exactly happened here? We're speaking about the main water source in town, the river, the lake dried up. So why can't the sharecropper claim some sort of deduction? He says, look, it's not my fault. This is, a natural disaster. So of course I'm entitled to get some sort of, accommodation for that. Sure, the main lake in town is working pretty fine. It's the local offshoot that transports the water to this particular field that dries up, and now he's complaining and he wants a deduction. It's extra work. So the response on account of the owner is, no way. You still have the water there. You got to transport it manually with pails. Go ahead and do that. I don't have to account for your for your issues. Omar Papa, Hani Tarti Masnaisa. You should know that the first two Mishnahs in this parak, Hani Tarti Masnaisa Kamaisa. So the Mishnahs that we have already learned, Mishkachas La Ben B'Chakarnusa, Ben B'Kablunusa. So typically there are two methods of sharecropping. There is the percentage system. So the sharecropper provides, let's say, a third of the crop to the owner as his portion as his commission. Then you have chachronus. Chachronus is a fixed amount. It's like a rental. I'm going to work the field and provide 100 bushels of wheat per year. Whether or not the field produces it, I'm still responsible to provide you that amount. Okay, so either I give it to you from the field, or if it's not available, I buy it in the marketplace. So these two systems, the first two missions can work with both systems. It's applicable either way. But going forward, the missions that we're going to learn going forward, the Isa b'Kablanus, the Mishnah which is applicable to the Kablanus system, which is the percentage arrangement, Leisa b'Chachronusa does not apply to the fixed amount arrangement. The Isa b'Chachronusa, the Mishnah which applies to Chachronus, Leisa b'Kablanusa does not apply to the other system. And Rashi says, Kol achas aparshana v'mkaima, as we get along, as we move on, we're going to explain it Mishnah by Mishnah. So the Mishnah explains that if it was stipulated, look, this is the Beis HaShalachan that you're going to be looking after, and the situation changes, then he has a right to complain. Bamai asks the Gemara, what's the complaint? Can't the owner just tell the worker, Shma ba'al ma'amrilach? I called it by name. It's a title. It isn't necessarily reflective of the actual, of the presence of that actual feature. It's called the Beis HaShalachan, it's called Beis HaIlan, because it used to have Ilan. It used to have, right? Milay Tani, haven't we learned the same concept elsewhere? Reuben tells Shimon, look, I'm going to sell you Beis Kur Afar Ani Moichelach. I'm selling you an area the size of a Beis Kur, a huge area. Even if it's only half the size, it's his. Why? Why is it a valid sale? It's half the size. He referred to it by name. This is what it was called. For whatever reason. Maybe it used to be big, and then Vudu Miskari Beis Kur, provided that's what it's called. So that's a legitimate argument. Why can't he just say, this is called the Beis HaShalachan, even though it doesn't have the, a functioning well. Another example, this halacha, karma, or kerem, another girl said, kerem ani meichel, I'm selling you a vineyard. Even though there are no vines featured in this vineyard today, it's a valid sale, because he referred to it by name. That's the title, that's what it's called. Vudu Miskari Karma, as long as it's called by that name. Pardes ani meichel, I'm selling you an orchard, which typically refers to a pomegranate orchard, as per the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Shlochayich Pardes Rimoinim. Okay, so here's the Pardes. The customer shows up, there isn't a single pomegranate tree. Higiyah. Too bad. Because he sold him property that was called a Pardes. Vudu Miskari Pardes, as long as that's the reference point. Right? That's what people refer to the area as. So apparently, we see from here, Amalei, a fellow can claim, Shma ba'al ma'amrilach, I'm just calling it by name. Hachanami, same in our Mishnah. Beis HaShalachan, Beis HaIlan, even though there are no trees or running wells, Neighborly can tell him, Shma ba'al ma'amrilach, I'm just giving you, a field which is called by this name. Amar Shmuel, the answer is like this, like Kash. It depends who's the one speaking. If the owner is the one who proposes to the chaycher, to the sharecropper, look, I'm giving you a sada beis hashalachin. So there we can claim Shema ba'alma is just a label, it's just a point of reference. The amar le'chaycher le'machker. The Mishnah, which says that he has a right to back away from the deal or to deduct from his responsibilities, that's because the chaycher was the one who mentioned this reference. He's the one who says, I'm going to work on a beis hashalachin for you. Right? So the Gemara explains, if the owner is the one who proposes this proposal, Shema ba'alma can say, look, it's just the way we call it. Amilach. But if the worker, by him it's a stipulation. He means it for real. I want a beis hashalachin. I don't know about names and titles. I'm looking for a beis hashalachin. Kfeida. He means it specifically. Rabbeinu Omar has another terrorist to answer this question. In all situations, we can be speaking where the owner was the one who spoke. But now Mishnah is different. Different than those halachas where you can just say, well, it's a name, it's a title, it's a reference point. But here, now Mishnah said, Beis hashalachan zeh, right? The Mishnah mentions the word zeh. This one, zu, right? Apparently they're standing right there, in the field. This is the field, right? So Beis hashalachan lo malei. Why does he have to say titles and names? I mean, he's standing in the field. He should just say would you like to work in this field? Why is he adding the word Beis HaShalachin? Oh, the Karmelei. Apparently, what he meant to tell him is Beis HaShalachin Kedekai Mahashta. I'm offering you work in my Beis HaShalachin, in my Beis HaIlan. Oh, the way it is now. But if there's any change, you have a right to get a deduction. HaMakabel Sadeh Mechaver Raviro, says the Mishnah. He was Makabel a field, and Rashi points out that this Mishnah is only applicable to a Makabel, not a Chaycher. So he's doing a percentage arrangement. Okay, and then Vayvira, he let it stay fallow. He didn't bother working the field. And obviously nothing came of the field. No, nothing was produced that year. The owner is pretty unhappy. I expected, a third of my crop. There's no crop. What do? We sit down, we assess. How much is a field like this typically going to produce per year? And the sharecropper has to provide based on that. Because in fact, that's what he wrote in the shtar when he committed, when he took upon himself this arrangement. If I'm going to leave it fallow and not develop it as shalim, I will pay made for my best possessions. Says the Gemara. We find that Reb Meir and likewise several other Tanaim coming up in the Gemara soon would expound on common language. Basically, even though something wasn't necessarily established or dictated by the Chachamim, wasn't a Takanas Chachamim. Let's say to write this type of language in the sharecroppers agreement, right? But if this is what they did, so it's binding. You have to work with it based, on the specifics and particulars of exactly what they wrote, and we're medayik. We focus, we zero in on the exact terms of their agreements. For a mayor hayidayish lashon hedyot, he would, base halachis on the lashonis, the language used by the common folks. Sanya, as we find in the Mishnah, and this is in the Mishnah. Now it's in a brisa which actually quotes, right, attributes it to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Omer, im oiver v'lo avid eshal meitava. Right, if I fail to work the field, I will have to pay you from my best, and it's binding. Likewise, we find that Rabbi Yehuda Hayadayish lashon hedyot, he likewise would base the halacha on language spoken by common people. The Sani, as we find, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Adam maybe korban ashal ishtay. So a husband is obligated to provide for his wife's korbanos, and even though in some cases the Torah allows some deductions for a person who cannot afford an expensive korban, you can bring a bird or a mincha, but if this fellow is a wealthy man, he has to provide a wealthy korban for his wife as well. He can't say, well, she can't afford it, let her get away with a mincha. No, he's the provider and he's wealthy, he can handle it, so he has to pay for it. V'chein kol korban v'korban shechayeves. And likewise, other types of korban, not only for giving birth or tzaras, and the other, like Rashi says, korban ziva, basically all her obligatory korbanis, Rashi says, except for donations. You can't just donate korbans on his account. He has to provide, and provide in a grand way. How do we know this is true? So it's based on the terminology, on the lashon, on the text. Now we find in the shtar that an isha, after divorce, she responds with a sort of receipt that she received the ksuba payout, and she adds, shekach kosev lo. And Rashi has a girsa, shekein hi koseves loy, that she writes to him, achrayis the islich alay min kal mistana, you've paid up all your responsibilities, right? So this includes the achrayis to pay for the korbanos as well. So this teaches us that it's his responsibility to provide for her korbanos. Hillel Hazakin hayidayish lashon hedyot. Hillel Hazakin likewise would base halachos on the lashonos of the hadyotes isanya. Anshe Alexandria, the people in Alexandria were wild fellows. So after they engaged their wives, when it came time to marry, they're about to enter the chuppah. Others will come and snatch away the wives. And the Chachamim wanted to consider the children born from these new husbands as mamzerim, because these were women that were already engaged. Kedushin is like marriage in those days, right? So the children of Mamzer, Amrlan Hillel HaZakan. So Hillel HaZakan turned to them with a question. Could you please show me the ksuba document of your mothers with their first husbands? Havilu ksubas imchem. They delivered it to Hillel. He took a closer look. Havilu ksubas iman. And upon examination, what did he discover? Matzah, he found the following nusach, the following lashon, shekasa behen, that the original husbands wrote into the ksuba like this. So basically, the marriage only takes effect if, in fact, we carry out the chuppah. It was like a condition. Rashi says the kedushin as well was upon this development, and there was no chalois kedushin. The kedushin did not get implemented until she actually goes into the chuppah. In this case, it wasn't applicable because she was taken away before that. And based on this lashon, Hillel HaZaken saved the day for them, right? Also named Mamzerim, and they spared them from becoming Mamzerim, because in fact they were never really halachically married to the first husbands. Furthermore, Rabbi Shimon Karcha hayadayish lashon hedi desanya. Rabbi Shimon Karcha Eimer Hamalbas Chaveri. Reuven lends Shimon $1 million. So although he'll have to take a collateral, but it shouldn't exceed the value of the mashke. Should not exceed the value of the actual debt. Why? You can't just use it as as a arm twisting method, because actually there is some correlation between the mashkin and the chayiv. Because we find that in fact when the lender at times, the Torah dictates that he has to return, he has to give back the avod. The Torah calls it the avod, the mashkin. Let's say it's a pillow, he needs it at night, he has to return it to him. And the loiva, the borrower, will issue a shtar, right? And he writes in the shtar, look, tashlumta is the chalai. Kol kaval dichi. Kol tashlumta means all payments. This chalai, which is upon me, you have a claim upon me. Kol kaval, which corresponds to the value, dichi, of this item. So I'm committing to the value of the item because you gave it back to me to use. So clearly there's a connection, right? It has to be of equal value to the chayv. Otherwise, why would the loiva commit to the value of the mashkin if it exceeds the value of the chayv? So clearly the two things have to have the same. Now comes a new kasha. Why would a loiva have to write this kind of shtar to the malva? The Gemara is assuming the reason is that in case the loiva would pass away while the mashkin is still in his possession, in the loiva's possession, we want the malva to have access to the loiva's bank accounts. We should not treat it like regular metatlin of a yassim, or if he leaves over some orphans. Typically, a malva cannot collect from their, only from real estate, not from anything other than real estate, like metatlin, money, and all that. So we're assuming that's why the loiva gives him that shtar. Look, I'm committing with a shtar, right? To give you back the value of the mashkin, right? And it's not really considered like a loan anymore. It's really your mashkin, and I'm just taking it back from you. So I owe you that amount. That's the purpose of writing the shtar. Time of the kasav lihachi. It's only because he gave him this type of document. But let's say he would not have done so. Like Kanya. The malva wouldn't really be considered the owner of the mashkin, which would enable him to access anything that belongs to the loiva or his family in exchange for that mashkin that he gave him back. Rabbi Yehuda tells us it's a pretty basic halacha. Mishkanai. If Reuben took a mashkin from Shimon, and he returned it to Shimon, gave it, for him to use. Umeis, and then in the interim, Shimon passed away. Reuben could just go back and take it away from his kids. Even without a shtar. What do you need a shtar for? Rashi says, to kivan the mashkin. Once Reuben took this as a mashkin, kanye. He's kind of kidi de gavaina. It's his for collection purposes. Answers the Gemara, the point of writing this type of document is actually meant to address a different concern. Let's say the item drops in value. while the loiva took it back and used it, it dropped in value. So if not for the shtar that he gave to the malva, pegging a certain value, he says, look, this is the mashkin I'm getting back from you, and I owe you that amount. Otherwise, if the mashkin dropped in value, the malva wouldn't have access to the full value anymore. You'd only be able to retrieve the actual mashkin, or the value of the actual mashkin today. So that's the point of writing the shtar, which commits the loiva to the original full value of the mashkin. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler Lashon Hedi. Likewise, Rabbi Yehuda went on this track of Lashon Hedi the San. Rabbi Yehuda Mokim shenago lasis ksuva milva, in a place where the minhag was to consider anything that a wife would bring into the marriage, the dowry material, to sort of package it as a milva, which basically allows the isha, upon leaving the marriage, to collect anything that she brought to the marriage as though she lent him money. Right? That's what we write today. Achrayus, Dano, Kabbalah, Salai. Right in today's Ksuba, that's what we write. So if that was the minhag, Goive, Milva. So it has a flip side too. Because if it's considered a loan, and that was committed to the husband, so the husband, upon getting married, can turn around and demand that full amount from his father-in-law. Basically, you committed to this amount. It's as though you owe it to me, like a chayiv, right? And he has a right to collect it in full from the father-in-law and hold on to it during the marriage, etc. Lichba, let's say the minhag was to double the amount. So let's say she was bringing in $1 million of material, they would state it as 2 million. It would sort of inflate it for, to make a more of a celebratory effect. Rashi says it was bishvil kavod, right? To add fanfare and excitement. So if that was the minhag, goyve mechza. So in actuality, the chassan can only collect half that amount because the actual commitment pertains to half that amount. Nahar Beloi, there was a chacham in a place called Nahar Bil, which the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Yud Zayin says was actually Rami Bar Baribi. Okay, so he had the minhag, Gobo Tilsa over there, he would only collect a third because they would inflate it by double, basically. If the ksuba featured $1 million, it really was a third of $1,000,000 that he was committing to. Mareimar Magbina Mishvacha. Mareimar, when it came to his ksubas that he was involved with, he would allow the chassan to collect the full amount, the inflated amount as well. Mareimar, why are you doing that? Vatani, we have a brisa. If the custom was to double, right, to artificially inflate the numbers, lichpol, so he only gets half. So why are you insisting? Why are you enabling him to collect the full amount? Like Kasha answers like this: how the kanimine? If you made a kinyan for that amount, so it's binding. You can't just say it's inflated. How the kanimine? If there's no kinyan, the assumption is that it's inflated. Ravina mashpach. So Ravina inflated the amount in his own daughter's ksuba because of labarte, right, for his daughter's ksuba. Amalei niklimine. So they told him, okay, let's make a kinyan for the full amount. Niklimine demar. Amalus, he responded, no. If you want a kinyan, sure. I'm not going to inflate the number, because then you're going to get the actual amount. If you want us to inflate it, I'm only doing it without a kinyan. However, there was a story of this fellow, the Amar Lahu. So he instructed the people writing he was, Rashi says, actually he was Mitzava Machmas Misa, he was passing away, and he instructed people, when they married the daughter off, to give her a certain amount of money for her dowry. Provide 400 zuz for my daughter's ksuba. So what do you mean? The actual amount? Or that's going to be the inflated amount, in which case the actual amount is half that much. Shalcha, Rav Acha, Breder, Rav Avi, L'Kamed, Rav Ashi. So he asked Rav Ashi, what does this mean? Arba Meya, Dinun Tam Meya. When he spoke about 400, actually 400, which is going to be recorded as 800? Or Arba Meya, Zuzi the Inun Masan, or did he mean 400 in the Ksuba, which is really 200 in actuality? Rabashi Chazina, let's further analyze his words. If all he said was give it to her, give her this amount, then certainly he meant give it to her. Arba Meya Zuzi, the Inun Tamni Meya, which is recorded as 800. But if he said record for her, so over there he meant Arba Me'azuzah Dinun Masan, he meant write 400, but it's really a gift of 200. There's another version of this response. We take a look and see what he said. If he said the word liksuvasa with a lamed, he meant it means actually give her 400 for liksuba, but recorded as 800. If he said biksuvasa, so it should be recorded in the ksuva as 400. So he meant right, 400, but the Inun Masam in reality only give her 200. Lo Yedigmor disagrees. Doesn't really matter. Lo Yishna, doesn't matter if it's with a lamed or with a base. Lo Yishna damar liksuvasa. Lo Yishna damar biksuvasa. We assume that it's the lesser amount. Arba me'ezuzay the Inun Masan. 400 really means 200. That the Amalu Havlo Stam, unless he says give her. Give her means give her this amount. Without any reference to ksuba, so it's literal. It's to be taken literally. How gaver the kibel ar mechavre. So you have a fellow who undertook to be his friend's sharecropper, Omar, and he says like this: trust me, if I leave this thing fallow, if I neglect to plant and to take care of it this year, I'm going to give you a huge amount. I'll give you $1,000. So he worked, but he left a third of the property fallow. Amri Nahardoi. So Nahardoi, they said, look, do you know who the halacha is? You have Lasmeya. He has to give him a third of the 1,000 plus Meya, plus a Matilsa, plus a Matilsa, 333 and a third. As per his commitment, as per his promise. Rabba Amar no, Asmachti. It's an exaggerated promise. He was trying to allay the owner's fears, but he didn't really mean it literally. Asmachta lekani, it's not really binding. He doesn't have to pay this huge penalty. Asks the Gemara, what happened to the Mishnah? We have a Mishnah which says he's responsible to compensate the owner. Why is it different than our Mishnah? Right? If I'm not going to develop the field, I'll pay the best. Well, Hassam like a Gazam. Yeah, over there was no exaggeration involved. So it's a fair commitment. He's paying him actual loss. But in our case, since he bloated the amount, Guzma Ba'almo the Gazam was just an exaggerated promise, which he didn't really mean literally. How gava the couple are l'shumshmi? We have a fellow who assumed a sharecropper status, committing to plant shumshmi sesames, which end up yielding a higher value crop, but there's a flip side to it because it extracts more nutrients. It tires out, the land quicker than, let's say, plain standard grain like wheat. It turns out that this fellow decided to do wheat, despite the fact that he promised to do shumshimim. Zarachiti. But lucky him, of the chiti kishumshimim. It so happens that season, wheat shot up in price, and the owner basically got the same profit as he would have if it would have been shumshimim. And he also gained on the fact that his field got less used up, so to speak, right? Sabar Rav Kana Lameimah, Rav Kana figured, this less wear and tear, so to speak, of the farm is to the sharecropper's credit, and he gets a bonus. So he can deduct, so to speak, from the portion that he gives the owner, prorated as per the what he saved him by planting the less demanding crop. Amalei Rav Ashler of Kahana, no. The common phrase is, the common saying is, Kach sha'ara, let the land get weakened, rather than the owner getting weakened, getting depleted. Basically, that's what the land is for. Work it out and work him hard and produce a good profit. So you can't just now deduct from the owner's share. He needs this to live on. In a similar fashion, there's another story of a fellow, the couple are l'shumshimi. Again, the same commitment to plant sesame. Zarachiti planted wheat. Of the chiti tefim shumshimi. This time he had a really bumper crop, and he yielded more profits than if he would have done shumshimi. So again, Savar Ravina figured, Yavli shvacha de beni beni. Sharecropper gets the extra. Amalei Rav Achmed difter Ravina, no. Atuhu ashbach. Is he the only one that deserves credit for this extra? Arad le ashbacha. You mean the land didn't do it? So basically, he gets no more than the owner gets. Continues the Gemara, Amri Nahardoi. So in Nahardoi they said as follows. This takes us into the sugya of iska. We all know about heter iska, right? So we're going to get a glimpse at the basics, the fundamentals of the iska concept. Amr Nardari, Hai iska. This iska arrangement is really comprised of two elements. Palgal milva, half of it is considered a loan, in which case Shimon, the one who undertook to look after the iska, is responsible for that amount. Palgal pikatan, and half of it is considered like a deposit, in which case the owner, Ruvain, who provided this iska to Shimon, is really responsible for that part. We'll see in a minute how this works, but just finish the opening line here. Avud Rabbanan Milsa. Now, why did we make this sort of milva / pikadon type of combination? Rabbanan established this type of system, which is agreeable, which is convenient and beneficial to all. Milsa the nichale l'leiva, it's good for the leiva, it's good for the malva. Why? Because if it's fully considered a loan in Shimon's hands, under Shimon's responsibility, who would want to do that? It's not fair to him. If it's fully considered simply like a deposit, in which case it's falls under Ruvain, the owner's responsibility, who would want to do that? Hand his merchandise or his money over to a stranger or somebody, and still be fully responsible. So it's sort of half and half, which is a happy compromise. Let's just stop for a second. Let's see the Rashi here. Just a short Rashi, the first wide line. Hai ilska palgal milva palgal pikot. Says Rashi, Makabel pargamatim balabayis. So pargamati is merchandise. We have a fellow producer, he has merchandise, and he wants to sell it off at a different location. So he gets this agent, this fellow, sort of like a consignment, like an investor, a fellow who's going to be a salesman. Okay. So he's makabel the pargamati from the balabais. Firstly, they make an appraisal. Okay, it's $1,000 worth of material. And what does the salesman do? Travels to a distant place where he can make a profit on this merchandise. On like half the profit. Okay, whatever he brings in, he gets 50%. So, as we explained, this arrangement entails a part milva and part pikadon type of combination. Chatzi achrayis oinsim olav kemilva. Oh, now the fact that part of it is a milva, what does that do? It constitutes, it triggers achrayis. He's like a part owner, right? Part of it that's sort of loaned to him, he's responsible for. The other half, which is considered pikadon, is under the owner's auspices. He's responsible for it. Okay? So that's the halach. Okay, so I take some merchandise, or it could work with money as well. You take the money, you invest it for me, right? You do. So half of it is considered still mine, a pikadon. Half is considered under your achrayis, like a milva, which you have to return to me by hook or by crook. In terms of the profits, we split it, and you get half the schar. But we'll see in a minute. Actually, the profit-loss ratio is a bit different. Let's see. Now, the Gemara continues. Hashtag amrin and palgan milva. Once we've considered half of it as a loan, so let's say Shimon, the salesman, decides to take that half and use it to buy a beer. Shopper dummy, you can do that. It's his stuff. Rava disagrees. Why are we calling it an iska? It's not just a straight loan, it's part of a broader arrangement, right? You have to look at the whole picture collectively. It's a package deal. It's called an iska. You must be involved. You can't just take it and sell it off, right? I want you involved as well. I want you to have a vested interest in this enterprise, so that you look after it and you try to make a profit for both of us, right? The Amrli tells him, I gave you the package deal, so you're involved. And you'll make sure that it's around, and you're going to reinvest it, and you'll be involved with it, and we'll make some money. Not to use it for beer. Another halacha. Let's say Shimon passed away. Nasa metalton etzal. So the portion of the loan portion is considered metalton. It's not real estate, right? It's metalton. And now that it's in the hands of his kids, who are Yisayim, they're not responsible for it. They don't have to repay it. Right? We all know metalton of Yisayim are not meshubed, not committed to a Baal Chayiv. So they're off the hook on that part. Rava disagrees. Rava Amar, no. Karle Iska, again, it's not just a straight loan. It's part of a broader Iska arrangement. The Imes lo yasa mitat netzel banav. No. You see, Rashi explains, you know why typically Baal Chayv could not extract mitalton from orphans? Because, he wasn't saimach on it. He wasn't really relying on it. When he issued that loan to the father, he wasn't really expecting to go to the kids and, right? Who's going to find money by the kid? He doesn't, right? That's not part of what he was sort of banking on, right? Knowing that the father can spend it, he'll never see it again, right? But this is different, says Rav. Based on what we just said, you can't just, it's not something meant to be spent. It's not something that's meant to stick around and be reinvested, and right? It's an ever-present type of situation. So here, the owner is certainly expecting that material money should be accessible even after this fellow should pass away. So here he can actually approach the Yisayimim as well and take it back. Amar Rava. Chada Iska. Here comes some rather complicated math. Chada Iska utrei shtori psei de malve. Trei Iska iski v'chad shtora psei de loyve. So we have to have a little bit of provide a little introduction here. Rashi brings the Gemara in Ezehu Neshach, back in DAF Samaches, that in terms of the profit-loss ratio, in order to avoid ribis, right? Because remember, half of this, let's say it's $100 iska, right? Reuben gives Shimon $100 as an iska. $50 is considered a loan, right? And $50 is considered a pikata. Now, why is Shimon even making an effort? Why is he looking after Reuben's money? Why is he investing Reuben's money? Why? So unless he gets something for it, it would be considered ribis, because technically he's doing it because Reuben lent him the other $50. So it's like returning a favor. It's like he's paying a fee for borrowing the other 50, the second 50. In order to circumvent that issue, Rabbanan say that Shimon, the salesman, the investor, the fund manager, will, in terms of receiving his profits, he'll get a greater portion. Proportionally, he'll take more than his part of the fund, which is only $50. He'll take 2/3 of the profits instead of 50% of the profits. And in terms of any losses that might arise, Reuben, the owner, will take 50% of the losses. So that's in lieu of payment, right? So basically, in terms of losses, they both take 50%, which corresponds to their portion of the fund. But in terms of profits, Reuben, the owner, only gets 1/3 of the profits versus Shimon gets 2/3. Okay, so knowing that, says Rav Chada Iska utrei shtori. Suppose it was one Iska. Okay, Sunday morning, he gave him an Iska, he gave him some merchandise. And it was, let's say, in 2 bundles, 2 boxes of goods. So if they were just included all in one arrangement, and consider it like one fund, put it into one shtar, then the malva would not experience unnecessary loss. But if they split into 2 separate documents, they consider it as though they're 2 separate funds, the malva can end up losing. Reuben can end up losing money. Rashi explains like this. Let's say, for example, if the bundle number 1 comes back at a loss, loses $5, and bundle 2 brings in a profit of 15. So if you join them together, so the loss of 5 is offset by the profit, in which case you have a sum total profit of 10, right? And what does Reuben get? He gets 1/3, right? 1/3 of the total profit. So he walks away with 3 1/3. That's if you put it together as one fund. So the loss is offset by the gain, and the total gain is 10. He takes a third, which is 3 1/3. Problem is, if you split into two, consider them like two separate funds, two separate investments. Now, since Reuben is taking half of the losses, but only a third of the gain, so in this case where the first bundle came in at a loss of 5, half of that 5 is now applied to Reuben. So he's taking upon himself a loss of 2.5. Right? Because the loss, the loss ratio is bigger than the profit ratio, right? He's taking half of the losses, even though only a third of the gain. So he has to chalk up $2.5 of loss. Then when we go to the other one that brought in profit, a total of 15. So, as we said, Reuben only gets a third of that, third of the profit, which is 5. But since he lost 2.5 on the other one, so now really, sum total gain is only 2.5. Versus the first approach, if he would have joined them together, as we said, he walked away with 3 1/3. He's losing. He shouldn't do this. If it was done on the same day, it's one arrangement, he should just put it together in the same doc. Don't treat them as separate arrangements, in which case, the loss factor can always be offset by the gain factor, which is to the benefit of Reuben, the owner, because he's accepting upon himself a greater percentage when it comes to losses than gain. Right? That's the logic here. So if you put them together, it's to his gain because if it's separate, then the loss factor stands alone independent of the gain factor, and loss factor is greater than the gain factor. It's not offset by the gain factor, but standing alone. That's the 50% commitment versus gain, which is only a third. But if you put them together, then one offsets the other. So you sort of gain because the profit will now offset that loss. I'll end up with more. So that's the first part of Rabbi's statement. And then we have the reverse as well. Basically the same idea. Trei iski v'chad shtar b'seder loive. On the loive's side, Shimon's side, the salesman's side, let's say it was really two separate arrangements. One was given to him on Sunday, one on Monday. So it's to his benefit to put it together as one. Right? He always gains from joining it together. Why? Sorry. They should keep it separate. He gains by keeping it separate, right? Let's follow the same law, the same thread here, because the loss factor is more expensive to Reuven if it's kept separate, and to Shimon's gain, Shimon's benefit. Because the loss undertaking on account of Reuven is greater than his potential for profit. He's taking 50% loss, only a third of the profit. So in this case, where there were two separate arrangements, keep it separate to help the loive. If you put it together, it's helping the malbim, but the loive might be losing from it. Right? So basically, Rashi says just an Eitzah Tova. Rabbi is teaching us some good, common sense, sound business practice. That if it's one iska, do it in one. If it's two, do it in two. This way, you're being fair to all parties involved. Okay, let's just recap today's daf. You took a Beis HaShalach and a Beis HaIlan, and something went wrong. The Gemara's maskana was, you have a right to deduct if you were standing there and you said zeh, which indicates that you were particular about these specific features. A fellow undertook to be makabel asada, but did not really do too much work. He has to compensate the owner. That's a lashon hedi that we find in the shtar, unless it was an exaggeration, which is considered a smachta. We had several examples of lashon hedi pertaining to karban, the husband's karban, the husband being obligated to his wife's karbanis, Hillel Azakin's thing with the ksuba in Alexandria. We have the mashkin issue, and we discussed various practices regarding recording dowries in the ksubais and all kinds of exaggerations, and took us into the story of the fellow who instructed them to provide a certain amount, and we had to determine what exactly he had in mind. And then we went into the sugya of the iska, exactly what it is, how it's arranged, and how to proceed with proper sound business practice. All the best to you, and